Minister Wintong. We will take all the clarifications at the end of the session.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson, and I want to thank all the members for their continued interest in and also support for MCCY's work. Sir, unity lies at the heart of what we do at MCCY. Our work spans many sectors: arts, heritage, sports, youth, our community, volunteerism. And these are all threads which bind us to one another and give us a shared stake in building Singapore together. This unity has also enabled us to achieve success as a country and also to be able to bounce back from crisis. As Mr. Sito Ipin points out, Singapore's social compact is based on building a diverse yet cohesive Singapore. Mr. Bayam King also spoke about citizens coming together to solve problems at a community and also at a national level. It was precisely to strengthen our civic bonds that we launched Singapore Together in 2019. It marked a shift towards deeper partnerships between the government and Singaporeans, and also amongst Singaporeans themselves. We engaged Singaporeans on national issues like women's development and also on our long-term land use plan, and partnered with them to develop solutions on complex issues through citizens' panels and alliances for action. Forward Singapore extends this collaborative style of governance to further the shifts needed to strengthen our social compact, because a sustainable social compact requires the investment and also the co-ownership of all of us in society. Since the launch of the Forward Singapore exercise, over 14,000 Singaporeans from all walks of life have come together to discuss what we want to see for Singapore's future, and perhaps more importantly, what each of us are willing to do to get us there. The contributions of Singaporeans will shape and strengthen the eventual recommendations and the outcomes of Forward Singapore. Under the Unite pillar, our focus is to deepen our sense of belonging, strengthen our bonds, and also entrench our sense of mutual responsibility and care towards each other. One theme that came through strongly from all these conversations was that unity in Singapore's context entails embracing diversity. It is not about being the same, but being able to engage across all our differences. And it is also about being stronger than the sum of our parts. Participants spoke about deepening our shared culture, heritage, and experiences. They spoke of creating opportunities for all of us to interact and connect with one another, and of how the arts and sports are integral in this respect. They spoke of bringing people across racial, religious, and generational lines together to work on issues that matter to them. My colleagues and I will address the various cuts raised by members and speak of MCCY's work to strengthen our core identity. Let me start with our arts and heritage, which connect us across communities and across generations. They help us deepen our sense of a shared identity. Sir, today we have an established and vibrant arts and heritage scene. Our national cultural institutions, museums, galleries, as well as arts and culture groups offer diverse programs throughout the year. And in fact, recently, the Peranakan Museum and also the Children's Museum in Singapore opened and reopened their doors with refreshed and interactive exhibits to tell of our Singapore story. We also continue to celebrate Singapore's intangible cultural heritage and traditional art forms. These include activities organized by clan associations or arts practitioners, which feature dialects, as suggested by Mr. Dennis Tan. And as Mr. Tan knows, that's already being done. We have performances from the Nanyang and Teochew Opera by Siong Ling Musical Association and Namha Opera respectively. And this is in recognizing that Chinese dialects are part of the Singapore Chinese culture and heritage, even as the government maintains its existing language policy of promoting the use of Mandarin as one of our 4 official languages. The government is committed to growing the arts and heritage sectors. Government funding has held steady in these sectors. Over the last 10 years or so, MCCY has committed public spending on arts and heritage at about $450 million each year, every year. In addition, during COVID, we rolled out a $75 billion arts and culture resilience package to support our practitioners during the pandemic and injected an additional $12 million to help ensure that our talent is preserved and support the continued transformation of the arts and heritage sectors. Our art spaces have also grown over the years. Just taking Arts GFA, managed by the National Arts Council alone, this has increased by 35% over the period 2010 to 2020, and this excludes other art spaces which exist in the private and commercial spaces. We also continue to support arts and heritage organizations to diversify their income streams via fundraising with the Cultural Matching Fund and the Sustain the Art or START Fund. Mr. Sito Ipin, Ms. Tin Pei Ling, Mr. Joshua Roch Thomas, and Mr. Seyao Chuan asked about our plans for the arts and heritage sectors. Sir, the first edition of our SG Arts and Heritage Plan gave us a strong foundation, gave us a firm footing on which to launch the next chapter of the arts and heritage plans. Even during the pandemic, the sectors responded with resolve and enhanced their capabilities. As we emerge from the pandemic, we do want to consolidate the gains that we have made and also unlock new opportunities that have come our way. It is thus timely to embark on a journey together with these sectors to envision the future. Over the past 20 months, NAC and the National Heritage Board, NHB, have consulted over 2,000 stakeholders on the next edition of our SG Arts and Heritage Plans. Many more provided their feedback online and also during roadshows across the island. These engagements are important as we want these two plans to be co-created and co-owned with the arts and heritage communities. Through the process, I met many arts and heritage practitioners. They shared with me how the arts and heritage sectors in Singapore have indeed come a long way, as many members here have appreciated, and how we can take these sectors, building on the strengths that we have, standing on the shoulders of the giants that have come before us, to take us to the next phase. Let me share some of the key shifts that we will be making. For our SG Arts Plan 2023 to 2027, we will place greater focus on the creative economy. Mr. Seyao Chuan spoke about helping the arts sector grow and develop these new capabilities. We agree. We have heard from arts practitioners and observed during the pandemic that increasing collaborations between the arts and adjacent industries present many opportunities for Singapore artists. They can cultivate new audiences and markets and develop new revenue streams. NAC will thus be looking at new focus areas such as intellectual property rights, new business models, and digital adoption. These measures will help artists and arts groups achieve greater growth and success. It will help them to deepen their reach to existing audiences and broaden their exposure to new ones. In addition, with the upcoming University of the Arts, students will benefit from existing programs offered by LaSalle and NAFA, as well as new programs to meet the needs of the creative economy. Our plans to grow the creative economy through our arts plan will in turn create better job prospects and pathways for our future graduates. In the next bound, there will be greater focus on increasing access to the arts, creating more occasions for people to share meaningful experiences through the arts. And we will do this by adopting a data-driven approach to better understand the needs and preferences of audiences, and also by expanding partnerships to increase touchpoints. We will also leverage technology and innovation to expand the playing field for the arts. My colleague Moslow will elaborate further on our SG Arts Plan when she speaks. On art spaces, we agree with Mr. Daryl David that spaces for the arts are crucial in the arts ecosystem. The government has in fact been very deliberate in developing spaces for the arts, ensuring that they are used optimally and efficiently, that there's also fair access and inclusive opportunities, especially for new groups and younger practitioners. We now have a range, I would say a diverse range of arts spaces. Artists can collaborate with each other at multi-tenanted arts housing spaces managed by NAC. MCCY and NAC also facilitate arts groups to take up direct leases on state properties and in commercial developments. In developing art spaces, we engage closely with the arts community and also work to co-create spaces and to think of ideas on how to use these spaces with members of the community. We have been working closely with the arts community, for example, to develop 45 Armenian Street. We had set up a resource panel, and the resource panel comprises private arts practitioners, an actor, an independent music producer, an arts academic, and also the former chair of the substation to get their views, discuss ideas, think of what the next phase of 45 Armenian Street might look like. Our shared goal? To ensure that the space will remain an inclusive one that supports artistic experimentation and development of young practitioners. We have received the resource panel's recommendations, and NAC will build upon these recommendations to guide the development and design for 45 Armenian Street. And this is one example of an additional space not managed by NAC, just as I've spoken about Kampong Java, another space that will come on stream shortly, and I've spoken about that previously. So let me turn now to our SG Heritage Plan. Mr. Sito asked about our plans to safeguard our national monuments. So we regularly restore our national monuments to preserve the buildings for posterity and for our future generations. I had announced in 2021 that we will be restoring the Istana main building and the former Istana Kampong Glam. Restoration works for the main Istana building is expected to commence early next year. The Istana has featured prominently in Singapore's transition from colony to sovereign state. And the upcoming restoration works will ensure that it will remain well preserved and functional for its historical importance and as a venue for important state functions and community events. The former Istana Kampong Glam, which houses the Malay Heritage Centre, has also closed for restoration and a gallery revamp following the MHC closing fest last year. Two other national monuments housing the National Museum of Singapore and the Sun Yat-sen Nanyang Memorial Hall are also scheduled for restoration. In addition to preserving our places, we have enriched the Singapore story also with treasures in our national collection. Beyond physical objects and buildings, we have safeguarded and showcased our intangible cultural heritage. We have also deepened our collaboration with Singaporeans through co-created exhibitions and programs. Mr. Hazmi Zin from Rumah Makan Minang, for example, was one of 45 business owners who participated in the Kampong Glam Citizen Engagement Project, and his participation, along with others, have enriched our understanding of the precinct's cultural heritage. For the second edition of our SG Heritage Plan, we will make a bigger push to reflect a more layered understanding of the Singapore identity. Design, such as fashion, craft, and architecture, is an important expression of our cultural identity and a catalyst for creativity and innovation. We have some top-class designers in Singapore amongst us, and we want Singaporeans to see their works and be proud of their achievements. We will therefore expand the national collection to include design. We also hope to strengthen the ties between our museums and the design community and industry. So, Singaporeans have shared with us their strong desire to be more involved in heritage. NHB will therefore explore new ways for Singaporeans to get involved in presenting and sharing our heritage with others. We will also support the heritage sector by using technology, and Moslow will elaborate on this plan when she speaks. So, like arts and heritage, sports brings people together. And we want to optimize our sporting facilities and spaces to encourage more people to come together, socialize, play together. In this spirit, we took over the ownership and the management of the Singapore Sports Hub to unlock its full potential, to make Sports Hub more accessible to all Singaporeans, and to achieve a deeper integration with the rest of the Kallang Alive precinct. We set up Kallang Alive Sport Management Company, or as Mr. Chay calls them, in short, and we all love our acronyms, CHASM, which operates under the ambit of Sport Singapore. This will ensure a stronger alignment between what the government aims to achieve and the KPIs that CHASM will have to aspire towards. Sir, this project has shown early signs of success. Mr. Darrell David and Mr. Xiao Chuan also asked about the developments following the takeover and our plans ahead. Let me share some brief highlights with members. Under the new management team, we have had many activities in the past 3 months alone, and we took over on the 9th of December last year, so just about 3 months. These events and activities include performances by live bands and dance groups, as well as community events such as the Fun Fam Sport Fest, a big walk event to usher in the new year, and a Chinese New Year Stadium Waterfront Carnival. Last weekend, I was just at the Sports Hub, and I saw many a casual jogger, kids with a family, playing football, playing basketball. It rained a lot, but we could use the promenade and the area around the 100-plus track to great effect. Student athletes have also been participating in the National School Games at the Sports Hub, competing hard, both at the National Stadium as well as at the covered courts in the Sports Hub. In the coming months, members of the public can look forward to more of such activities, including some National School Games finals, the National Stadium open houses, as well as grassroots events. Let me assure Mr. Mark Chay that CASM is indeed working closely with all its partners, and that includes the NSAs, to deliver more community programs, but also to ensure that there's more synergy across the board. I thank Mr. Chay for his brief marketing efforts at his attempt at marketing Sports Hub's programs, and I want to assure him that we will also be stepping up on our own communication efforts to leverage on social media, word of mouth, engage with our partners, work with more broadcasters to bring more Singaporeans to the Sports Hub by raising awareness of the events and activities that we will have at the Sports Hub. At the same time, concerts and marquee sports events have also experienced an upswing, also in the same period of time. A few weeks ago, we hosted Westlife, which sold out for 3 consecutive nights. This was notwithstanding that on one of the nights, the Red Hot Chili Peppers was competing for eyeballs just across the road at the National Stadium. Both were sold out. Both happened on a weekday night, no less. The 2 concerts together welcomed more than 50,000 people to the Sports Hub. In the coming months, Singaporeans can also look forward to world-renowned entertainment events, such as, for those members who are interested, Harry Styles, Blackpink, as well as to marquee sports events, such as the World Table Tennis Singapore Smash, happening this week and next, and the HSBC Singapore Rugby Sevens, happening next month. We also have FIBA, which is the International Basketball Association, who will be having its Intercontinental Cup in Singapore for the very first time. Sir, there is a whole suite of activities for everyone, from community and sporting events for children, youth, families, and seniors, to international marquee events. And we certainly hope that Mr. Chay will not find that it will remain a ghost town for much longer. The developments in the larger Kallang Alive precinct, in other words, the areas outside of Sports Hub that can be used to synergize with Sports Hub, is also on track. With the Kallang Football Hub with 4 sheltered and 3 outdoor pitches, and the Kallang Tennis Centre comprising 7 indoor and 12 outdoor courts due to be completed later this year. With these developments, we will move towards using more of the whole Kallang Alive precinct in synergy to offer a greater array of international sporting events alongside local programming. For instance, we can combine the facilities at the OCBC Arena, the Singapore Indoor Stadium, and the new Kallang Tennis Centre, and be able to confidently bring in marquee sporting events such as, for example, an ATP 1000 sporting event. In parallel, Singaporeans in the community can try out the sport at the community level. Community tennis sessions, for example, or tennis clinics for social competitive players and aspiring athletes, youth competitions, and so on, activating the entire precinct, not just in Sports Hub, but the broader precinct that is Kallang Alive, so that we will have a whole ecosystem of sports across a diverse range of sporting levels, all integrated with the other upcoming lifestyle and entertainment offerings. For our national teams, let me assure Mr. Chay that the NSAs continue to be prioritized in the booking of Sports Hub and ActiveSG facilities for national team trainings. In fact, with the government now taking charge of the Sports Hub facilities, we can better optimize the use of these facilities across various users. So to give Mr. Chay one example, SportSG worked with Singapore Gymnastics to ensure that our gymnasts could train at Sengkang Sports Hall, whilst their usual training venue at OCBC Arena Hall was activated to host the Singapore International Rhythmics Gymnastics Cup. So we had one international gymnastics event at the usual training center, but at the same time we could use other spaces within our facilities across the island to continue the tempo of national training unabated. Our plans for the Sports Hub and Kallang Alive Precinct are part of a larger Sports Facilities Master Plan, or SFMP, to develop and refresh national training centres for elite athletes training and sports facilities across Singapore for all Singaporeans to enjoy. Sir Mr. Muhammad Fahmi Aliman asked about our plans to enhance sports participation. Ms. Hanny So asked how we can ensure accessibility of community sports. So we have seen more people participating in sports and exercise regularly. Let me just give members a sense based on our numbers. Based on our National Sport Participation Survey, residents who participate in sports and exercise regularly, at least once a week, has risen from 54% in 2015 to 66% in 2019. And even during, or perhaps in particular during the COVID pandemic period, this continued to rise to 74% in 2022, which are all very encouraging signs. And these indicators show that more Singaporeans are keen on getting more active. In addition to the sports events at the Sports Hub that I shared earlier, the public also enjoys sporting activities across Singapore. In 2022, 148 community leagues and competitions were organized across 19 active SG sports centers. And bear in mind that in 2022, for part of that period at least, we were not able to come out and do these events. But once we were able to, we had more than 100 of such events and leagues going on at the 19 active SG centers across Singapore. This involved more than 13,000 participants, including young children and seniors. And last year, we introduced the Active SG Cup, which saw more than 1,300 participants across two sports, basketball and football. And this year, we plan to introduce two more, floorball and volleyball. So we see the value in lifelong learning, even in sports and active participation and exercise. And we want to cultivate this interest and this good habit from when we are much younger. Therefore, all Singapore citizens and permanent residents aged 4 to 12 years old will receive a top-up of $100 worth of Active SG credits. This will apply to all who are Active SG members or sign up as new members between 1st May and 31st October this year. Parents may use these credits to offset the costs of their children's Active SG programs and cover the entry fees into Active SG facilities such as our swimming pools. This, I hope, will encourage more children to come out to play together with their peers, with their neighbors, and their families outside of the structured school sport participation. We are working hard to build more and better sporting facilities throughout Singapore. We will enhance access and also step up on having a greater variety of programming at these facilities. And our hope is that every Singaporean will have ample opportunity to enjoy, engage, and excel in sports. To Mr. Sharil Taha and Mr. Muhammad Faisal Abdul Manap, there are questions on developing Singapore football, and I get this every year at every COS. We launched Unleash the Raw in 2021 to develop a strong local pipeline of football talent. This was intended to be and is a long-term plan that we've put in place to grow the base of participation, to identify talented young players from a young age, and provide these talented players with rigorous training and structured opportunities to be coached well, to compete regularly, and to have a clear pathway to the national team. Let me elaborate on the next few steps that we have for our young talents. Since 2021, we established 12 school football academies, or SFAs, of which 2 have dedicated programs for girls. We will expand the number of SFAs and also increase the program intake over the year. These SFAs, together with the Singapore Sports School, the Active SG Football Academy, as well as all private clubs and academies in Singapore, they provide a broad base of participation for us to identify suitable talent. And this will be our foundational base. We will put in place a national framework to systematically select and develop the best players from this broad base. We will take the following steps. First, we will set up a National Football Development Centre as the main training centre for all our national youth squads. Our best young footballers aged 13 to 17 will be drawn from all available pipelines that I described earlier to these squads. This centre will be our primary pathway for selection to our national team, one central cohesive path. Within this centre, players will be selected into core and also reserve teams, and we will review them periodically. Why? Because we don't want anyone to be too comfortable or too complacent, and we want to ensure that throughout the squads at the different age groups, there will be competitive tension. These boys and girls will train and compete regularly as a team, and we are looking at setting up a junior league that will give our players regular opportunity to be competing at high levels. They will also, from time to time, come together to train as a squad so that they can get to know and meet each other, play together. On occasion, also competing overseas for even further exposure. These players will also be supported with a comprehensive suite of sports science, nutrition, and sports medicine. Second, and I think Mr. Faisal Manap and Mr. Tahir raised these points on talent identification and scouting. They are very important to us. We have a small population with a small base, and we need to ensure that we have our eyes at all available talent all the time. We will progressively roll out training on talent identification for coaches, strengthen our scouts' capabilities in identifying the best of our young footballers. We also want to tap on the experience of our ex-national players, our ex-national coaches, who have already had an eye for talent, been taking part at the highest level of the game, and we'll invite them to be part of this system, to be trained, and to be part of our scouting network. Third, on coaching. To ensure consistency in our training and development ecosystem, a common coaching syllabus will be used, and in fact, it's already being used across all the SFAs and the national youth squads. More than 500 coaches and teachers have already been trained with this curriculum to date. We will also introduce coaching licensing and renewal after coaches have acquired the necessary continuing coach education hours. We will also find suitable opportunities for our coaches to learn from the best, to be immersed in an environment so that they can have an experience of what it is like to be coaching at the highest levels. For example, our partnership with the Spanish La Liga has allowed us to bring in experienced youth coaches from Spain to augment our local coaches, as well as to provide overseas learning opportunities for them. Last, but certainly not least, we will launch the inaugural UTR scholarship later this year. Our best young footballers will be sent to overseas academies that offer good quality education alongside the best football training and competitive environment. So we know that receiving a good quality education is important for our young boys and girls. Therefore, throughout this stint in the scholarship, they will come back with academic qualifications that will allow them to continue future studies at the tertiary level in Singapore or overseas, even as they train and compete with the best amongst the overseas talents. We will start this program later this year, and we are considering a good academy in Europe to kick off this program with. At the same time, similar local scholarships will also be available for suitable footballers who choose to enroll in the Singapore Sports School. Through this, we hope to prepare them for future overseas scholarship programs and opportunities, and also spur more footballers to be enrolled in a full-time program for their football development. More details of this scholarship will be shared when ready. For footballers with NS obligations, in other words, after they return, after they finish their stint between the ages of 13 to 17, early enlistment is a possibility, and one that we've explored quite successfully with several other footballers. For example, with Irfan Fandi, Eligible footballers can tap on existing support avenues to continue training and competing whilst at the same time fulfilling NS obligations. So, developing talent takes time, and our focus is really on laying a strong foundation for long-term growth and learning. And we are putting in place a systematic infrastructure to expand, to nurture, and to develop this pool of young players at the base level, starting from when they are 13. The best will be identified and put into the National Development Center, as I outlined. They will play and compete and train regularly, both locally as well as overseas. And over time, this initiative will provide us with a steady pipeline of players to choose from. It will take time, and much as I know all of us are invested in the outcome of Singapore football, and I've heard the emotional, passionate speeches made by members earlier, I would ask for our continued and all your continued support for this program, to this system, to ensure that our younger players have a chance to progress and become the pool for which future national team selection can be available. So let me turn now to the management of community disputes. Many members have spoke about this. The strength of our cohesive society, in my view, is not found only in what we have in common, but also manifests in how we negotiate our differences and deal with conflicts that inevitably arise. Ms. Joan Pereira, Ms. Ching Li Hui, and Mr. Seo Chen asked about enhancements to the Community Dispute Management Framework, or the CDMF. An interagency work group led by MCCY, together with BINLAW and MND, have been conducting a review of the CDMF. SMS Siman and I have already spoken about the enhancements in different areas relevant to MND and MINLAW's COSs, respectively. But to pull it all together, let me reiterate how we are enhancing this framework. First, we want to promote community norms as our first line of defense. I think SMS Siman made that very clear, and I too reiterated that when I spoke in my MINLAW capacity. Clearer social norms encourage the self-management of behaviors. And as SMS Siman said, MSO has been working with partners to promote community norms for noise management recommended by the Community Advisory Panel on Neighborhood Noise. Second, we are looking at allowing dedicated personnel to leverage stronger laws and help these neighbors resolve their issues upstream. In other words, before they get to the stage where it becomes intransigent or intractable and they got to go to the CDRT or other adjudicatory tribunals to resolve their differences. For instance, this team will be able to conduct investigations or direct residents to attend a mandatory mediation, or to stop the actions that are causing the nuisance pending the mediation or the adjudication. As SMS Siman shared last week, MSO will be piloting this with disputes arising from serious noise disturbances between neighbors. We will also explore consequences for recalcitrant offenders who fail to stop the actions as required. Third, we will increase access to community mediation and mandate mediation for certain types of disputes between neighbors. Let me explain why we start with noise and we also pilot this project with noise. In 2022, noise-related disputes made up for about 65% of all neighbor-related disputes registered for mediation at MINLAW's Community Mediation Center. And this trend, by and large, has been consistently the case over the past few years. In other words, for noise-related disputes to form the bulk of such complaints or such cases for mediation. In many cases, clear expectations on acceptable community behaviors, as well as a mutual appreciation of what the parties are facing, would go a long way towards improving the situation. Hence, we want to encourage disputing neighbors to find an amicable mediated settlement of their disputes as far as possible. And to support mediation services, we will expand the pool of mediators as well as forward deploy them as far as possible into the community, so it's not just all centralized at the CMC. We will also be giving mediated settlement agreements more teeth and standing to encourage greater compliance with the mediated outcome. Finally, we will also enhance the processes and the powers of the CDRT as an avenue of last resort to give affected residents faster and more effective relief. And this we have to do because with all these steps that we take, by the time a case ends up at the CDRT, there would have been numerous attempts at mediation, at conciliation, and these probably represent the most intractable and intransigent of cases. And we want an effective and efficient, speedy framework to deal with these problems. And those steps are what I had elaborated upon when I spoke at the Min Law COS. So we have a comprehensive set of enhancements, but each of them do not operate in silos. They work together to drive and encourage the right behavior and also actively facilitate the resolution of disputes at an early stage in a way that best preserves the relations between neighbors. But even as we strengthen the teeth on CDRT, we mandate mediation, let me emphasize, even as we are looking at leveraging stronger laws, have more teeth and bite, these should not be used as a measure of first resort. We interact with our neighbors on a daily basis. Most of us want to live peacefully, side by side with our neighbors. And so, when disputes arise and intervention is needed, we encourage disputing neighbors to go through mediation as far as possible, allowing parties to talk to each other about the issues that vex them, and through the assistance of trained and oftentimes very effective mediators, find a common path. It helps to preserve, and in some cases even mend, and make better the relations between neighbors. We will invite residents to share their views on this when we conduct public consultation on the proposed CDMF enhancements later this year. Sir, our diversity, which I've spoken about and many members in this House have spoken about on various occasions, must be harnessed for the common good. We need the diverse strengths and talents from the community to tackle the challenges we face as a nation and build Singapore's future together. Our youths play a crucial role in this regard. Youths today are well-informed, more prepared, more ready, and they want to engage with us to discuss policies. Ms. Tin Pei Ling spoke about engaging youths. MCCY and the National Youth Council, NYC, have continued to engage and partner with youth on national issues in various ways. And let me elaborate. These include policy co-creation platforms, such as the youth circles, and programs such as the Youth Action Challenge that supports them not just in talking about these ideas or listening about the suggestions, but in working with them actively to turn these ideas into action. From our Forward SG engagements, we continue to see a very healthy, sustained youth interest in policy making, and we want to create more opportunities to meet these aspirations. So MCCY and NYC are exploring ways to create more policy space and also work on how to institutionalize the involvement of more youths in policy making and elevate their proposals for consideration onto a national platform. We will share more details when this is ready. Ms. Yeo Wan Ling asked about our plans to expand our youth leadership programs to provide younger student leaders the opportunity to engage on national issues and also to build strong networks. NYC and the National Community Leadership Institute, or NACLI, in partnership with MOE, piloted the inaugural OSLP, Our Singapore Leadership Program, last year. This was a program as a pilot for about 50 Sec 4 students from MOE schools and madrasas. It took place in December 2022. All the student leaders who participated in this inaugural OSLP came from different schools. In other words, we had 50 of, well, I think it was about 53 different participants from 53 different schools. Leader is defined broadly, and some were heads of student councils, some were participants in their dance groups, and others captains of their sports teams or members of the uniform groups. Leaders defined in a very broad, inclusive fashion. We brought them together. They came together to reflect on and discuss issues which confront Singapore. They talked about, grapple with trade-offs and the complexities of policy designs. And they also expanded on their network of friends, people that they can talk to, connections that they can make, forge new friendships. We found this program very successful, and we want to give more youth an opportunity to take part in this program. From 2023, we will expand the program to nominated Sec 4 students from all MOE schools and madrasas in Singapore. For students from the Institutes of Higher Learning, NYC will develop a new leadership program, and more details will be shared when ready. Mr. Seo Chen has pointed out, and I agree with him, there's value in having and promoting active citizenry, volunteerism, and collaboration. And these traits must continue to underpin our society and our social compact. Beyond youths, we are encouraging individuals and corporates to play an even more active role in coming together, work for the social good, leverage on corporate purpose, and uplift our communities. We will therefore expand and deepen the capabilities of our SG Cares volunteer centres. We will resource them better so that they in turn can support the various social service agencies that are under their watch and they're working with. And we can better channel volunteers and donations in kind to meet unmet needs. We will also support businesses in their efforts to be a force for good for society as they design their business practices and operations in ways that benefits their employees, their stakeholders, and of course the wider community that they serve. Moss Elvin will share more details when he speaks. Mr. Don Wee asked how our self-help groups, or SSGs, are collaborating to enhance outcomes across ethnic communities. Whilst the SHGs were set up to provide customized support for their various respective ethnic communities, they also work together and strengthen mutual support across the different ethnic communities. For example, the SHGs will launch a series of inter-SHGs youth dialogues centering around themes emerging from the ongoing Forward Singapore exercise, and this will happen in mid-2023. These dialogues will bring young people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, and empower them to develop and lead ground-up solutions. The SSGs will also create more opportunities for volunteers to interact, to serve with one another across different SSGs. And we don't have volunteers from an SSG that only come from the particular ethnic group that SSG serves. It is open to, and we encourage all volunteers to come from a broad spectrum of different ethnic groups to serve the broader spectrum of society through the SSGs. These efforts by our SSGs embody the Singapore Together spirit. Singaporeans, diverse as we may be, stepping forward, working together and building a better nation. Mr. Chairman, to conclude, I've spoken about our various MCCY initiatives, and my colleagues that follow will elaborate on many of these and speak of various other measures as well. But our principal focus is really to deepen our roots and expand the reach of our arts and heritage. We don't do that just as a means in itself or as an end in itself, but as a means to an end, to promote arts, culture, heritage, sporting participation, and excellence, both at the community and at the professional level. We do this to foster neighborliness, care, active citizenry as part of that unique, our Singaporean DNA. These efforts speak to what it means to call Singapore our home. And our home is not just a physical space. It is also how we see ourselves, all of us, as connected and bound to others in Singapore through arts, heritage, culture, sports, and religion. It is about who we are as a people, our shared experiences, what we do to care for each other, look out for one another, and the values that we hold dear and that we live by. These are the threads that bind us and hold our social compact together. These are the threads that run through each of us as Singaporeans. Growing these aspects of Singapore is delicate work, but it is important, and it requires the commitment of all of us, regardless of language, race, religion, social economic background. And on our part, MCCY will continue to work with all Singaporeans, join our strengths, and inspire a collective action to build an enduring social compact where we stand and act as one united people, and we are proud to call Singapore our home. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Minister, I'd just like to extend my condolences. I know it's not easy after last night's development to talk about football, but you've been calm and uplifting. We very much appreciate that.